Welcome to my channel. She swore she'd never fire a rifle in combat, but on a scorching ridge in Kadesh, survival forced her hand. Sergeant Liana Morrow was a medic, trained to save lives, not take them, until one impossible shot changed everything. What began as a rescue turned into the birth of a legend, the first medic-marksman hybrid in her unit. I never meant to fire a rifle in combat. That wasn't why I enlisted. I wanted to save lives, not take them. But on that scorching day in the Darlak Mountains, with bullets slamming into rock and men screaming for cover, I realized what no textbook or trauma course could ever teach me. Sometimes, survival demands you cross lines you swore you'd never touch. My name is Sergeant Liana Morrow. I'm a combat medic assigned to Pathfinder Unit 621, and until that mission, I'd never killed a soul. We'd been dropped into the cliffs above Tarnak Gorge in northern Kadesh province. It was a routine overwatch operation, or so they said. Infiltrate under darkness, set up on the ridge, gather intel on a suspected insurgent outpost, and pull out clean. That was the plan. But nothing ever goes according to plan in this place. I'd been embedded with Pathfinder 621 for just over 4 months. My job was written in the field manual: stabilize trauma, provide emergency care, and keep our guys breathing when evacuation wasn't an option. I wasn't there to fight. That was for the shooters, snipers like Sergeant Owen Marks or team leads like Lieutenant Jace Holloway. Still, I wasn't completely new to rifles. I grew up in the Bitterroot Valley of Montana, where opening day of deer season was practically a holiday. My father, a former Marine Scout sniper, taught me to shoot before I could legally drive. But shooting a mule deer at 250 yards with a bolt-action rifle under clear skies wasn't combat. Out here, distance didn't just challenge your aim, it tested your nerves, your patience, your very right to breathe. We were positioned along the granite lip of a dry ridge, jagged rocks sloping down to the Taliban compound below. Intel had marked it as a Level 3 command post, housing mid-tier leadership and planning assets. Our task: watch, log activity, and report movement for a larger strike. No engagement unless fired upon. No heroics. Simple, right? We had eyes on the compound by 0500. Sergeant Felix Cole and his spotter, Vega, were glassing through long-range optics, relaying movement. I'd set up my medical station in the shallow depression behind the ridge, tourniquets prepped, morphine loaded, trauma pack sealed, and ready. Half an hour passed before Sergeant Vega's voice crackled through the comms. Command elements moving. Looks like they're prepping a briefing or ops cycle. Then the radio bands flared, static and encrypted bursts on Taliban channels. Sergeant Cole adjusted his scope. They're coordinating. Fast. Too fast. Reinforcements? Holloway asked. Maybe. Or maybe they know we're here. And then it happened. One crack. One bullet. It ripped through the silence and slammed into the rock just inches from Vega's head. Then came another. And another. Sniper, someone screamed. We dove for cover. The shot had come from across the valley, high up in the opposite cliffs. Rough estimate, 1,200 meters out. He's in the cave system, Mark shouted. Tight angle, almost no silhouette. We're pinned. Our overwatch became a kill zone in seconds. One shooter, one ghost in the rocks, had locked down our entire team. Sergeant Marks, the best long gun we had, tried scanning for him. I've got nothing. Just flashes. No body. No clean line. Lieutenant Holloway signaled the fallback route, Point Delta. Extraction bird inbound in 30. But we couldn't move. Not with that shooter pinning every exit with mechanical precision. Then the worst hit. A shot caught Lieutenant Holloway in the shoulder, spinning him to the dirt, blood soaking his combat blouse. Medic, came the call. I grabbed my gear and crawled. The distance between me and Holloway wasn't more than 30 meters. But with a sniper watching, it may as well have been miles. I hugged every stone, every patch of earth, ignoring the burning sun, the dust in my throat, and the pounding of my heart. By the time I reached him, blood had soaked his gear. The bullet had torn through his upper shoulder, shattering the clavicle and threatening major arteries. I went to work. Pressure, seal, stabilization. My fingers moved on instinct, years of training kicking in. Morphine. Coagulate. Assess vitals. Immobilize. That's when I saw it. Through my medical scope, just a flicker. A glint. A flash of metal in the rock across the gorge. Not visible with the naked eye, but clear as day through high-grade magnification. A scope lens, maybe. Maybe a rifle barrel. The sniper. He was there. I froze, breath caught in my chest. Then I reached for my radio. "Command, I've got eyes on him," I whispered. "He's in the eastern cliff face, halfway up. Looks like a natural cutout in the stone. It's camouflaged, but I've got a positive visual." A long pause followed. Marks came back. "I can't see him. Your angle's different. You're the only one who has him." I looked at Holloway, still breathing, barely. Then I looked at the ridge, at that faint shimmer of death waiting across the gorge. And I made a choice. "Give me the rifle," I said. At first, there was silence on the radio, then disbelief. "You're a medic, Morrow," Sergeant Marks replied. "You're not taking that shot." "I'm not asking for a kill count, Sarge. I'm saying I have a clear line on the only man keeping us from extraction. Holloway's stable, for now. But if we wait, more of us go down." Master Sergeant Ryland Trask, our team commander, broke in. His voice was grave. "Morrow, confirm. You've got visual and a stable firing position?" "Confirmed," I said. "I've got him cold. He's tucked behind natural rock, using it as a blind. But I can see the muzzle flash every time he shifts. He'll be vulnerable in the next 10 seconds. Trask's voice was tight. "That's a 1,200-meter shot, Liana. I know. You ever taken one that long?" "No. But I know how to shoot. And right now, I'm the only one who can." Sergeant Marks hesitated. Then I heard him sigh. Deep, reluctant. "All right. I'm bringing my M2010 to you. Bolt action. 300 Win mag, dialed for range. You've watched me enough to know the setup." He crawled low, keeping his body tight to the dirt, and reached my position within a minute. His face was dirty, lined with tension. "You sure about this?" he asked, offering the rifle. "No," I admitted. "But I don't think we're getting another chance." Marks quickly walked me through the corrections. "You're aiming 2 mils high for drop. Winds gusting right to left, call it 9 clicks. 1 mil left hold. Watch for shimmer, he's moving with pattern." I nodded, taking position behind the scope. The rifle was heavier than mine. The trigger lighter. The reticle danced slightly as my breath slowed, and I placed my finger gently along the guard. It was a moment I'd never trained for. A shot I had no business taking. But beneath the nerves, I felt something familiar. Steadiness. I'd felt it in the back of medevac birds, holding pressure on a chest wound while under rotor wash. I'd felt it in field hospitals in Kandahar, when 2 lives hung in the balance and I had to choose who got the last pint of blood. I knew that calm. I lived in it. The glint came again, barely a flash. "There," I said. "He's leaning in. Wait for the full profile," Marks coached. "You get 1 shot, Morrow." The sniper leaned forward, probably to fire again. "Now," Marks whispered. I took the slack out of the trigger, held my breath, and squeezed. The crack echoed across the ridge like a thunderclap. Seconds stretched like lifetimes. Then the radio came alive. "Target down, Vega confirmed. Repeat, snipers down. We are clear." Silence followed, stunned, electrified silence. I let the rifle fall away from my shoulder, and my hands began to shake. I'd made the shot. The impossible shot. I looked at Holloway, still unconscious beside me, and whispered, "You're getting out, sir." Then Trask came on comms. "Outstanding shot, Morrow. Extraction inbound. Let's move." And just like that, it was over. We were moving again. No longer pinned. We had air support back, a route open. Within 20 minutes, a Black Hawk carved down through the canyon winds and lifted us out. Holloway lived. We all did. And the sniper? He'd never fire again. But that shot did something more than save our skins. It drew a line I couldn't uncross. I wasn't just a medic anymore. Not after that. Back at Forward Base Elston, the hangar smelled like dust and hydraulic oil. The kind of place where adrenaline drains off your skin and exhaustion starts to take its toll. Lieutenant Holloway was already in the trauma bay, prepped for surgery. I sat outside, still in full kit, hands locked in my lap. I hadn't spoken a word since the bird touched down. Mark sat next to me, elbows on knees. He passed me a water bottle, but didn't speak at first. "They'll write that shot up," he finally said. "Command's going to lose their minds when they find out who took it." I didn't answer. "You all right?" he asked. I met his eyes. I hit him center mass. I saw it through the scope. Watched the recoil, the arc, the fall. Marks nodded slowly. "You did what needed to be done." He had us pinned for 3 hours. Killed one of the support teams up the ridge. You gave us a way out. That's not what I'm asking, I said. You ever take a shot and feel something different? Like you didn't pull the trigger, something else did. He studied me, eyes narrowed beneath his dusty helmet brim. Every sniper has that moment. First time you send one that matters. Doesn't matter how trained you are, your soul feels it. I looked down at my gloved hands. I became a medic because I wanted to stop people from dying. I didn't come out here to kill anyone. Then maybe you're exactly the kind of person we need taking that shot, he said quietly. The conversation didn't go further. The medics called me in to assist with Holloway's stabilization. Back to my primary job. Pressure, stitching, sedation. My hands worked without thought, precise as ever. But something was different. Something inside had shifted. Later that night, Trask found me in the makeshift mess, drinking cold coffee that tasted like brake fluid. Words spreading, he said. Commands calling your shot a miracle. I didn't respond. He took a seat across from me and folded his hands. I filed the after-action report. I made sure they understood exactly what happened out there. You didn't just patch up a wounded officer. You saved the entire unit. I met his eyes. That's not the part I'm thinking about. He leaned in slightly. No soldier makes it through this without crossing a line. For some, it's pulling a trigger. For others, it's choosing who gets the last shot of morphine. The difference is, you did both. I stayed silent. You've got a gift, Morrow, he added. And it's not just medical. You've got a calm under pressure most people never develop. When it mattered, you didn't blink. You think that matters more than the fact I wasn't qualified to take that shot. I think the guy on the other end of your barrel isn't going to be filing a complaint, he said with a half-smile. Then his tone softened. You'll carry that shot with you. We all do. But you didn't take it to kill. You took it to protect. That's the difference. He left me there, staring at a half-empty cup and the quiet hum of base life around me. Somewhere, the wind stirred dust outside the tent flaps. Somewhere else, Holloway slept under sedation, alive because of what I did. I'd always been the one who kept people breathing. But now, I was something more. Something I didn't fully understand yet. The official debrief lasted just over an hour. It should have taken longer, but the facts were hard to ignore. 1 Taliban sniper. 3 hours of suppressed movement. 1 precision shot from an untrained shooter. 0 friendly casualties after the shot. I sat across from Major Ellis, the mission control officer for Central Command Sector 7. His uniform was flawless, his tone clinical. Sergeant Morrow, explain again how you acquired the target. I used my medical scope, I answered. Caught a reflection, glass off a scope, maybe, inside a camouflaged rock cutout. Nobody else had the angle. And you believed yourself capable of the shot. I believed no one else could take it in time. He leaned back, hands steepled. You understand the implications. Non-designated personnel aren't authorized to engage in long-range sniping operations. Yes, sir. But you did anyway. Yes, sir. Why? Because if I didn't, we'd all be dead by now. That hung in the room for a long moment. Then he leaned forward, opened a dossier, and pulled out a photo, grainy thermal recon taken just after the shot. The heat bloom from the enemy sniper's position was gone. One dot had vanished. This was taken 60 seconds after your shot. Dead center. He closed the folder. There's already talk about reassignment, he said. Not punishment, recommendation. I frowned. Reassignment. To the Special Operations Precision Course, he said. Sniper school. I blinked. Sir, I'm a medic. Medics can shoot. And yours wasn't just a lucky trigger pull. I spoke with Sergeant Marks. He said your control was better than most he's trained. I couldn't speak. Not yet. He continued. You won't lose your medical role. But if you pass the course, you'll qualify for dual MOS status, combat medical sergeant and designated marksman. You'll become a hybrid asset. Rare. Very rare. I left that room with a sealed manila envelope and a flight order to Fort Blake for evaluation. It didn't feel real. Not yet. I spent the night alone in my bunk, staring at the ceiling, hands still instinctively checking gear I wouldn't need for weeks. I wasn't sure what unsettled me more, the fact that I'd been asked to kill again, or the fact that I hadn't said no. Out on the field, a few of the team passed me silent nods. Not one comment. No jokes. No questions. Just respect. That was new. Later, Marks found me cleaning gear behind the motor pool. They're sending you to Fort Blake. Yeah. You'll hate it, he said. But you'll pass. I smirked. Confidence in me? Confidence in your hands, he said. And your heart. Then he held up a small patch, one I hadn't seen before. A dark red cross overlaying a marksman's crosshair. Only 3 people I know ever earned this, he said. One of them took a shot in Kandahar at 1,100 meters. Through smoke. Saved a convoy. What's it mean? He smiled faintly. It means you're someone who can kill to save. There aren't many of those. I held the patch for a long time. I wasn't sure I deserved it yet, but I was going to find out. Fort Blake was a different world. No one cared that I was a medic. No one asked about my service record. They didn't salute, they didn't smile, and they definitely didn't hold my hand. You shot. You missed. You adjusted. Or you left. The instructors were ghosts in ghillie suits, silent, exacting. Every movement we made was scrutinized. Every mistake punished. 1 second too slow, 1 breath too heavy, 1 whisper too loud. You'd hear about it in front of everyone. They called me Clot at first. Short for blood clot. Someone who was there to plug holes, not make them. Fine by me. I didn't talk much. Just took notes, listened, and kept my kit pristine. I cleaned my rifle every night like I was prepping for surgery. Because in my head, that's exactly what I was doing. I wasn't here to learn how to kill. I was learning how to cut out threats with precision, like removing a tumor. 1 clean incision. 1 perfect shot. That mindset helped me cope with what I was becoming. The range test started on day 4. Targets from 300 meters to 1,200 meters. Stationary, moving, obscured, low light, wind shift, dust swirl. I nailed every one. By the end of week 1, they stopped calling me Clot. Now I was just Morrow. There was a moment, halfway through a cold morning session, when the head instructor, Chief Odell, stepped behind me during a 900-meter live-fire drill. He said nothing for several minutes as I worked through my breathing pattern, adjusted for wind, and sent a round into a moving steel plate. Ping. Then he leaned in close. You ever fired under pressure before? I didn't look up from my scope. Yes, Chief. Combat. Yes, Chief. He stepped away without another word. By week 3, we began stalking exercises, learning how to move unseen, set up silently, disappear like we were never there. That part was harder. It wasn't about skill, it was about instinct, about living in the space between beats. But I'd seen that space before, on blood-slick rocks in Kadesh province, between one heartbeat and the next. That moment where you decide whether someone lives or dies. I adapted faster than I expected. One night, after lights out, I stood alone in the range tower, staring down the scope of a cold barrel. The moon was up. My breath misted. The targets stood silent and lifeless, white boards peppered with bullet marks. I traced the edge of the scope with my gloved hand, and I remembered Holloway's blood on my fingers. Remembered the hiss of the wind, the sound of that rifle's crack, and the silence that followed. 1 shot, 1 decision. And now I was here, chasing the mastery of that moment. It wasn't about glory. It wasn't about medals. It was about readiness. Because I knew, sooner or later, I'd be asked to take another shot. And I'd have to be even better than before. I passed Fort Blake's final stress test with a perfect score, but I didn't feel like celebrating. Instead, I stayed behind at the range, alone, just after dusk. The instructors had gone. The others were back in the barracks, probably cracking beers and trading stories. Me? I needed silence. I lay prone on the gravel, scope dialed to 14x, a cardboard target 1,000 meters away, barely visible through the falling dark. The wind was shifting slightly, maybe 4 knots west to east. I made the adjustments without thinking. Muscle memory. Reflexes I didn't know I had 6 weeks ago. I fired. Ping. Dead center. That sound, clean, sharp, metallic, echoed like a voice calling from another world. Nice group, came a voice behind me. I didn't flinch. I'd already heard the footsteps approaching minutes ago. Quiet steps, but not quiet enough. Chief Odell knelt beside me. That's 3 dead center hits in 5 minutes. You're not just good, Morrow. You're surgical. Is that a compliment or a diagnosis? He chuckled once, then grew serious. You ever wonder what it says about someone who can shoot like this, but still walks around carrying trauma scissors in their side pouch? Every day. Let me tell you what it says. It says you understand restraint, that you shoot only when there's no other choice. I looked at him, and when that choice comes again, you'll be ready, he said. Not just because you can make the shot, but because you'll understand what it means to take it. He handed me a folded sheet. Orders. You're heading back to Pathfinder 621. They requested you personally. I raised a brow. Back to Kadesh? He nodded. Intel's heating up. The old safe routes aren't safe anymore. They're sending hybrid qualified personnel in pairs. They want you on point. Medic/marksman, I said flatly. The rarest breed in the field, he replied. I looked down at the orders. Deployment in 72 hours. New mission brief attached. Classified. You earned it, Morrow. I didn't ask for it. No, he said. But you made yourself ready anyway. That's what separates you. We shook hands, a quiet, unceremonious gesture. Then he left, his shadow disappearing into the growing dark. I stayed there a while longer, watching the moon rise over the quiet targets. Still unmoving. Waiting. The only difference now? So was I? The ride back into Kadesh felt surreal. Different bird, different gear, same red dirt below. Same feeling in my gut, that strange, low hum before a storm. Pathfinder 621 was already wheels down when I landed at Forward Observation Base Icarus. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the temperature was climbing fast. Dust clung to everything. Your boots, your weapon, your skin, and your thoughts. Sergeant Vega met me on the tarmac with a smirk and a slap on the shoulder. About damn time. We've got holes to patch and heads to count. Heard you can do both now. I gave a tight nod. Where's Trask? Inside. Getting screamed at over some drone footage we're not supposed to have. He led me through the maze of prefabs to the command tent. Inside, Master Sergeant Trask looked up from a flickering monitor and cracked the smallest smile I'd seen from him yet. Morrow, he said. We've got work. The mission was simple, on paper. Escort a recon team into the Rashek Divide. Intel suggested a high-value target meeting was scheduled. No engagement unless fired upon. Just like before. Only this time, we knew better. This isn't just recon, I said after scanning the mission file. No, Trask agreed. It's bait. We're the net. I looked at the terrain map. Sharp elevation drops. One main exit corridor. Perfect for an ambush or a trap. They know we're coming, I muttered. Probably, Vegas said. But they don't know we're bringing you. The team's gear had changed. Lighter packs. More optics. And in my case, both my trauma kit and a new M110 rifle, optics dialed in, sling already broken in. My hands ran across the barrel like I was checking a vitals monitor. No play. No friction. Perfectly zeroed. As the sun climbed, we moved out on foot, 6 of us in staggered intervals. The ridgeline shimmered ahead like a sleeping dragon. The calm before chaos. 2 hours in, we found the first signs, disturbed soil, odd track patterns, broken brush in deliberate angles. Someone had walked this path recently, and tried not to look like they had. Vegas spotted it first, a glint near a broken tree line, almost half a click out. Scope lens, he whispered. We've got overwatch ahead. Trask ordered a halt. I dropped to a knee, scanning with my optics. Nothing. Shadows, shimmer, brush. But no shape. Same kind of setup as last time? Vega asked. No, I murmured. This is smarter. They're watching our formation. You think they see you? I think they're waiting for me to show my hand. We didn't move for 10 minutes. Just watched. Then I saw it. Barely a flicker. A stone that hadn't been there a minute ago. A shape that shouldn't have curved the way it did. Subtle. Deadly. Got you, I whispered. I radioed Trask. Requesting sniper authorization. Position marked. Confirmed concealed shooter. You've got the call, Morrow, he said without hesitation. No backup angle. It's yours. I steadied the rifle. The world narrowed. Heart rate dropped. Breathing slowed. I adjusted for distance, angle, wind. Then I waited. The sniper moved, just a fraction. Maybe to shift. Maybe to fire. That was enough. I squeezed the trigger. One shot. One breath. One clean impact. Target down, I reported. Threat neutralized. And just like that, the trap they'd set for us had collapsed before it could spring. But I knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. The dead sniper had been part of a spotter team. We found the other 1/2 a kilometer back, tucked beneath a rusted-out section of ravine wall. He never saw Vega coming. Trask's instincts were right. The Rashek Divide wasn't just a rendezvous. It was a fortified trap, meant to bleed us out and collect our gear for trophies. Their confidence was staggering, but they hadn't planned for someone like me. We pushed forward, staying low and fast. Every movement was surgical, every stop calculated. At the drop point, we discovered something unexpected. Not fighters, transmitters. Two small portable arrays camouflaged with local brush. That changed everything. They're relaying coordinates, Vegas said. Marking movement patterns. Someone's painting our patrol routes. Using local terrain like a switchboard, Trask muttered. Command needs to see this. We collected the gear and pulled back toward the extraction zone, double time. But halfway down the north slope, the ridge exploded with gunfire. Not the precision of a sniper. No, this was suppression. Chaos. 3 shooters, elevation above us. Maybe more. Muzzle flashes lit up the rock face. I dove behind a slab of shale as a round cracked overhead. Contact 11 o'clock. Elevation plus 60. Trask barked. We returned fire, suppressing hard. But their angle was wicked, their cover smart. They were trying to pin us, force us to dig in. And that's when I heard the call. Vegas hit, one of the guys yelled. Shoulder, bleeding bad. I was already moving. Crawling low, pack in one hand, rifle strap tied across my back. Vega was curled behind a rock, teeth clenched, blood dark and wet along his upper arm. It wasn't arterial, but it was ugly. Bone maybe. Definitely nerve damage. I've got you, I told him, tearing open the trauma kit. Even under fire, my hands were steady. Tourniquet. Pressure bandage. Morphine. Stabilize. Recheck. Just like we drilled. He gave me a weak smile. Thought you gave up saving people. Not a chance. When I finished, I looked back up the ridge. We were still boxed in. Still outgunned. But now I knew where the suppressive fire came from. Saw the brief, repeated flashes. 2 firing positions. One using tracer spray. The other, covering the fallback route. Trask, I've got targets marked, I radioed. 2 shooters. I can get to position, 70 meters north, higher angle. You're cleared. Get it done, Morrow. I handed Vega's care to another operator, then slung my rifle and scrambled through the rocks, low and fast, heart hammering. I reached a ledge just above the enemy position and slid behind a rock outcrop. Set up my rifle. Scanned. There. Both shooters. Working in tandem. Moving confidently. They didn't think we had anyone on their level. I centered the reticle. 2 shots. 2 impacts. Both targets dropped. Silence fell. Then came Trask's voice. All clear. Good shooting, Morrow. My fingers stayed frozen on the rifle for a second longer. Not because I doubted the shot, but because I could still feel the moment it ended. Every time I pulled that trigger, I felt a line being redrawn inside me. The medic in me stepping aside just long enough to let something else take the lead. But there was no guilt this time. Only purpose. The last stretch to the extraction zone was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that puts your nerves on edge, like the world is holding its breath. We moved in a tight formation, Vega limping with support, his arm now wrapped and stabilized. His pain was obvious, but he was still in the fight. That's just who he was. Next round's on me, he muttered as we cleared a narrow ravine. Assuming we make it back. You're paying even if we don't, I said, smirking despite the tension. The LZ sat in a clearing flanked by tall rock spires, a natural choke point and a sniper's dream. If anyone had been lying in wait. But there wasn't. No ambush. No traps. Just a pair of humming rotors and the welcome blur of black blades cutting through the morning haze. The bird landed hard, and within seconds we were airborne, climbing fast over the Rashek Divide. The mountains fell away beneath us, jagged scars of terrain carved into my memory forever. In the silence of the cabin, Trask turned to me. You redefined what a combat asset looks like out there. I shook my head. I just did what was needed. Exactly, he said. And that's what sets you apart. Vega gave me a thumbs up from the opposite bench. His color had improved. His smirk was back. I sat there with my rifle across my knees, medical pack resting against the bulkhead, and tried to absorb the moment. 2 worlds. 2 skill sets. 1 mission. In the debrief 2 hours later, Command reviewed the recovered transmitters, the eliminated threats, and the precision of the shots that allowed our team to survive. All of it went into the record. But there was something that wouldn't show up in the paperwork. The way my hands no longer trembled after a trigger pull, or how instinctively I'd shifted from stitching a wound to stopping a threat. The transition wasn't forced. It had become part of me. When the final form was signed, Trask handed me a small envelope. What's this? I asked. Your official designation, he said. Hybrid specialist. Confirmed by both Command and Special Operations Group. You're the first one at this level. Medic and marksman. Equal weight. I opened it. Inside was a patch, a new one. A caduceus overlaid with crosshairs, surrounded by the words, Servar per vires. Save through strength. I held it in my hand, feeling the weight of it settle in my chest. They'd given me a title, but the truth was, the battlefield had already named me. 6 months later, I stood on a windswept ridge at Fort Blake, not as a student this time, but as an instructor. A new class of trainees lay prone on the gravel line, squinting through scopes at targets downrange. Dust whipped through the air, catching on their sleeves and in their eyes. I walked the line slowly, checking form, breathing patterns, trigger discipline. One trainee, a young woman named Callow, was visibly frustrated. Target 7, she said. I keep missing low. I knelt beside her. What's your hole? 2 mils, she replied. Compensating for distance. Not enough? I said gently. Winds shifted. You're getting pushed harder than you think. Try 2. 5 mils high, half mil left. She adjusted, exhaled, fired. Ping. She turned to me, blinking. Thanks. I just nodded. One shot. One solution. That had become something of a mantra for me, on and off the range. Because I'd learned something in those mountains of Kadesh, something no manual had ever taught me. You don't get to choose which part of yourself gets called when the moment comes. You only get to choose whether you answer. Some days, I'm a medic. The calm voice during blood loss. The hands that know where to cut and where to stitch. Other days, I'm a marksman. The eyes that find the hidden threat. The hand that steadies the rifle no matter the wind, the pressure, or the consequences. But always, every day, I'm a soldier. And the oath I took wasn't to just save lives or to fight enemies. It was to stand where others fall. To be what the mission needs, when it needs it. That shot in Kadesh changed my life. Not just because of what it ended, but because of what it began. It reminded me that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a whisper behind a scope, saying, you can do this. Sometimes it's patching a wound while the sky falls around you. Sometimes it's both. And if you're lucky or cursed, you learn to carry both with you every step of the way. The brass still argues about my role sometimes. They're not sure what box to put me in. But out there, in the dust and heat and gunfire, no one asks what your job title is. They just ask if you can help them make it home. And when that moment comes, I'll be ready. Trigger steady. Hands clean. Eyes forward. Because I'm Liana Morrow. Combat medic. Precision shooter. And when the silence falls after the shot, I'll be there to catch the heartbeat that's still going.